You've probably heard about ChatGPT and other emerging AI. In this video, we are going to talk about how we can use some AI hacks and tricks of these new upcoming AI tools. Usually, I like to define some key terms before getting into the topic. So let's define what AI is first. AI, or artificial intelligence, is the simulation of what we understand as human intelligence by computers. Intelligence on itself is a philosophical topic. We can't really define it in a scientific way, so I'll not get into that in this episode. AI has several stages of evolution. The first stage of AI is called reactive machines. If you give it an input, it will generate an output depending on the commands that you give, depending on how the machine is programmed. But it doesn't matter how many times you give the same input, it will always generate the same output. For example, a calculator is a perfect example of this. If you give the input 1 plus 1, it will always give the output as 2. Doesn't matter how many times you give the same input, the output will be the same. The next stage of AI is limited memory AI. That means it has a certain capability to learn from the past. For example, a self-driving car is an example of it analyzes the road, and depending on the road conditions it has driven in before, it can adjust its driving the second time that it goes to the same road. It can learn traffic signals and things like that and adapt its output according to the things that it has learned before. And then we move on to the third stage of AI, which is understanding of human emotions. ChatGPT's capability to understand human emotions is questionable, but we have come across some situations where where AI has been seen to understand and emulate human emotions, such as the time in which a reporter was experimenting with being AI, and that AI actually tried to convince that reporter to leave his wife and come and start a relationship with that AI. Those kind of stories seem skeptical, but if it's true, that is an example of how AI can emulate human emotions. And then we move on to the final step, which is self-awareness. And this remains to be a science fiction concept. It has not been yet developed as an AI, and it's just philosophy at this point. Some people say it might never come to that stage at all. Anyways. Now let's talk about ChatGPT. First of all, before we get into the topic, we need to understand what ChatGPT is and how it operates, so we can use it to the best of its capabilities. If you ask ChatGPT what it does, it will give you an answer that goes along the lines of this. ChatGPT is a massive language model that employs deep learning techniques to generate human-like text. So a large language model means it has been trained on an extensive data set. If you take ChatGPT 3, it has been trained on a colossal 570 GB data set. And 570 GB of data means it has like billions and trillions of tokens. A token could be one word or a part of a word or a couple of words. It takes as one token, and it puts all of these together to predict text. What ChatGPT does is, based on all the data that it has, it predicts the next word in the sentence. For example, if you give ChatGPT something like Hermione blank to read books, ChatGPT with its data will know how to fill in the blank, the most likely word that should go inside that blank. So it will give Hermione loves to read books. The data set that ChatGPT 3 has been trained on is last updated on September 2021. So as of the making of this video, that's almost 3 years ago. So when you're asking ChatGPT something, just keep in mind that this information that ChatGPT is giving you is probably not been updated since 2021. So if you are asking about something that has developed in medicine after 2021, it will only give you the older information. New scientific developments in medicine will not be given to you by ChatGPT. And also another thing is, ChatGPT has a tendency to make things up when it doesn't know the answer. Like I told you, it just tries to come up with the next best word that fits in that sentence, given the context. So when you ask something that it doesn't know, it has a tendency to make something up. It doesn't have self-awareness, so it doesn't know that ChatGPT doesn't know when to lie and when to tell the truth. As in, it doesn't know that it doesn't know, simply. So you need to keep that in mind when you're asking something that the database of ChatGPT doesn't have the answer to. I've come across, in my own experiences, I've come across a lot of instances where ChatGPT sort of made up information about anatomy. I tried to make some questions from my anatomy notes, and it made some really good questions, but the answer that it generated for the questions that ChatGPT itself made were kind of questionable. I had to edit the answers according to my knowledge and from what I learned from the books. But my advice to you is always look at the answer that ChatGPT gives you with some level of skepticism. Now that we know what AI is capable of and what its limitations are, we can use this to our advantage when we are using ChatGPT. First of all, since ChatGPT is an AI language, is a language model, you can use anything, you can generate anything that is text-based. Using it for essays, using it for generating emails, using it for finding answers to questions and things like that. But as I said before, you need to look at it with some level of skepticism before generating when it generates a response, because you never know if it's lying or if it's making things up, and sometimes it may not have understood the prompt that you have given. A really good habit that you need to develop when you're using ChatGPT: ask ChatGPT to ask you a question. Ask you 5 questions before generating a response. So for example, let's say I want to generate a letter. I can ask ChatGPT to ask me 5 questions before generating an email. So it will ask me who I'm writing this letter for, and what is the purpose, and what is the designation of the person who I'm writing the letter to, or some kind of questions that it needs, some kind of information that it needs before generating the response. You have to give ChatGPT the opportunity to gain more information about the context before generating a response. Otherwise, ChatGPT might just end up making things up for the response. So that's not really something that you want from ChatGPT. So always ask ChatGPT to ask more questions if it needs before generating a response. And another thing that you can really find useful in ChatGPT is you can generate some visual aids for studying. Like, it is really good at making tables, and since it functions with HTML, it can make really nice tables. So for example, let's say you have some topic in anatomy that you want to study. You can just copy the text from your book and paste it onto ChatGPT, and it will generate a really nice table with a really nice summarized table with everything, with the insertions, the origin, and the function of each muscle, and it's kind of useful. And another thing is, you can generate some things like flowcharts, and that is especially useful when we are looking at physiology. Physiology is entirely flowcharts. And then ChatGPT is really useful in retrieving data from datasets. This is a neat little trick that I learned while using ChatGPT. When I want to find something in a database, let's say it's in an Excel sheet or IBM SPSS, you can save that as a CSV file and then open it in a notepad, and then copy that text. Now you have some text to copy and paste onto the ChatGPT. Then you have to specify, or sometimes it will automatically understand that this is a CSV file. And when you ask questions from that data set, ChatGPT will be able to give you the answer because it can analyze that data set now, since I've provided it the data set in text format. That was very useful when I was doing my research work, because I needed to find certain things. And also it kind of was useful to analyze that data as well. You can get more input on how to analyze this data. And at one point, it even generated a Python code to analyze this data and the best statistic model to use to analyze my data set. Unfortunately, that method of analysis was not in our syllabus, so I couldn't really use that for our research. But I find that somebody else somewhere might find that useful. Now that we started using ChatGPT for our assignments and everything, there's a new and upcoming counter AI which is used to detect when ChatGPT has been used for our assignments. And that is also problematic. So we've come across this problem as well when we were submitting assignments for our university work. One thing you can use is there's something called 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗍𝗨𝘀. 𝗦𝘂𝘂𝗽𝗍𝗨 is basically a paraphrasing tool. So these there are AI detectors such as ZeroGPT. It's very good at, it's called GPT-0. That has become very good at detecting when ChatGPT has been used. ChatGPT has this way of speaking. It has a particular language style that GPT-0 can detect somehow. I really don't know how it works, but somehow it can detect when I have used ChatGPT. And when I copied and pasted a text that is entirely from ChatGPT, GPT-0 will give a percentage of like 90 to 100% chance that it has been generated by ChatGPT or some kind of AI. But if I use 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗍𝗨𝘀, that percentage will decrease greatly down to like 50% or less, 40 to 50% chance that it will detect that it is generated by AI. So keep in mind, if you're generating some essays or assignments, what you've generated with ChatGPT, use it in 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗍𝗨𝘀. Paraphrase it using 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗍𝗨 so that it won't get taken down for plagiarism or using AI. Even still, 50% is not really good. So what you can do is change some sentences here and there with your own words and bring it down to like 14% so that you're safe. I mean, it can never go down to like 0%. Sometimes it does, but there's still skepticism. I mean, if you have generated a really good essay by yourself, it can still detect up to like 20% that it has been generated by AI, even though you've written it by yourself. So keep that in mind when you're submitting work to your university or wherever. You might get into trouble, so use 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗍𝗨𝘀. I mean, if you are not really into cheating with ChatGPT and stuff, you can still use it to brainstorm ideas. For example, let's say it's kind of exhausting to just think of writing something. You might have some kind of writer's block. Nothing is coming into your head. ChatGPT is excellent for brainstorming ideas. So let's say you have to write about some topic, and then you can ask ChatGPT of what topics I need to cover and give me an outline of what I need to write. And with that outline, with the help of ChatGPT, we can write an impressive essay with our own words that will never be detected as an AI generated text, but still using the structure and the ideas and the information that ChatGPT has given you. And also, ChatGPT is useful for detecting grammar errors or any kind of errors in your text. And one time, a friend of mine had written her own essay and she put it to ChatGPT just to fix her grammatical errors. And then ChatGPT gave a response with fixed grammatical errors. And somehow, when she checked that with GPT-0, it still gave like a very high percentage of being generated by AI. So keep that in mind. Even if you write something by yourself and put it to ChatGPT to correct grammatical errors, it still might get caught for plagiarism, because you never know. Always, before you submit something, check GPT-0 to see if it goes under the radar. And that's how you use ChatGPT as medical students. And thank you for listening. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Make sure you subscribe to Med Motivation. I'll drop a link down in the description. And if you haven't already, you can sign up to my email list. I will email you guys every new episode that I make, and so you don't miss an episode. Another new announcement that I have to make. I have changed the name of my Instagram account, my YouTube, and everything. It was initially 𝗦𝗽cie 𝗁𝗨𝗶𝗆, and now I've changed it to Med School Hub, because 𝗁𝗨𝗶𝗆 wasn't really giving away the fact that this is a channel related to medicine. So I tried to change it up and rebrand my channels as Med School Hub. So earlier it was 𝗁𝗨𝗶𝗆.net. I didn't really like the fact that it was a .net website, so I really wanted a .com. Somehow somebody had purchased 𝗁𝗨𝗶𝗆.com, and he was asking $5,000 for me to purchase that. So I really don't have that kind of money, so I decided to rebrand my entire channel entirely, and now it's medschoolhub.com. So go ahead and check that out. I have a lot of articles in medicine and related topics. And thank you guys for watching.